There's a lot of common thoughts and beliefs for beginning entrepreneurs that really can slow things down or just cause some friction. The big one I see is inconsistent income is something I have to solve. Or I'll hear a lot of like baby entrepreneurs say, Gina, should I join money school? Because I still have inconsistent income, so I might not be ready. And that just signals to me that, oh, you think you're going to one day not have inconsistent income and that you're going to spend your energy because you have that thought and belief. You're going to spend your energy trying to solve that. But that is not a problem to be solved.
Hey, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Bold Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, founder of Honeybee Bold and fellow bold woman in business. This show is all about highlighting women who are changing the world, helping other women, and kicking ass along the way. Let's dive in. It is my pleasure today to welcome Gina Knox to the show. Gina is a financial coach for entrepreneurs, and I'm going to let her fill in a little bit more details about what that means. But in full transparency, I just joined her mastermind. And so I am so extra excited to get to talk to you today because I'm already pretty blown away by what you're sharing. And it really is a very big mindset shift in how to approach money, think about money. And that's so valuable for us as entrepreneurs. My listeners are female entrepreneurs, and many of them are just kind of getting started with starting a business or have been doing it for a while, but things aren't quite clicking. And so I think that you just have a lot to share. So tell us a little bit more about what you do, how you wound up here, all of that.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Like I said, I'm Gina Knox. I'm a financial coach for entrepreneurs. I started my career as a small business researcher for QuickBooks, and I worked there for 5 years. My whole job was to do primary interviews with small business owners globally and just be like, show me your QuickBooks. Show me how you do things. How are you remitting taxes? How are you paying yourself? Like literally my whole job was just to learn what actually small business owners were doing financially so that we on the team could actually design QuickBooks in a way that made sense. Because as you can imagine, we're all a bunch of high paid W-2 tech workers. We have no idea what it's like to have inconsistent income or run a business. So that was my full job for 5 years. And I had the pleasure of speaking to over 400 companies in my time there. And I always say, like, I challenge anyone to do that job and not be inspired because you're just constantly surrounded by these incredible stories of small business owners. And eventually I really wanted to start my own business. I think as well, I had this moment with a manager. By the way, this was my first job out of college too. So like baby Gina, I had this manager who sat me down and she's like, so Gina, what do you want your career goals to be? Because, you're going to be doing this for another 30, 40 years. And I looked at her and I was like, maybe I didn't actually say this, but I'm like, maybe you're going to be doing it for 20, 30 years. I am not. That just freaked me out. The idea of being in a career where I have to go to an office every day for the rest of my life. And that kind of kicked off this little bit of career dissatisfaction where I had nothing wrong with my job. I was paid well. I loved my coworkers. I respected everyone I worked with. Nobody was an idiot or challenging to work with. I had a cool job and I worked on a cool product, but just this general dissatisfaction was there. And so I started just leaning into money, which is something I already had this natural affinity for and this passion for. And I started with my friends. We started a wine and budget night and we would just talk about money. We would talk about our 401ks. We would talk about our stock options that we were getting from the company and what to do with them and the tax implications and all of that.
So fun. I feel like I would love to talk about money if wine were involved.
I mean, it like kind of loosens everybody up for sure. And so it just started there. And then I began coaching people. And then I decided I have all this industry knowledge. Why don't I coach business owners? And the rest is history. So that's a little bit of background about me, but I say that to say I don't have a traditional finance background. And I actually think that's one of my superpowers because I'm able to explain financial concepts in a way that doesn't rely on heavy traditional financial mental models.
Yeah.
And I think that my clients appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I Obviously, I'm running a business. Money is this unavoidable part of running a business, but
Totally.
but I'm probably not in the minority where it is the part of my business that I hate the most. And so it has been really refreshing to have your unique perspective on it. And also, I think you are really good at explaining things in ways that people who are money averse are able to absorb and not be scared of. So I think that's a really big skill of yours.
I think too, working at QuickBooks, I just honed that skill because my job was to explain business finance to W-2 employees. And I did that for 5 years. So I think it's just also a ton of practice trying to translate things for two different groups of people.
Yeah, for sure. You talk a lot about money mindset, and anyone who is in the entrepreneurial space is familiar with that term, probably. And I think we all have different degrees of struggle with that. I think it's very, very normal. But I would love to hear, what are some of the biggest money mindset mistakes you see entrepreneurs running into, and how do those impact a business's potential for success?
Yeah. I think first, let's define what money mindset is. I'll use my definition. It's very simple. It's just the thoughts and beliefs you have about money. That's it. So everybody has a money mindset. And to your point, we all have different thoughts and beliefs about money. And those thoughts and beliefs then impact the actions we take in our business. There's a lot of common thoughts and beliefs for beginning entrepreneurs that really can slow things down or just cause some friction. The big one I see is inconsistent income is something I have to solve. Or I'll hear a lot of like baby entrepreneurs say, Gina, should I join money school? Because I still have inconsistent income, so I might not be ready. And that just signals to me that, oh, you think you're going to one day not have inconsistent income.
Right.
And that you're going to spend your energy, because you have that thought and belief, you're going to spend your energy trying to solve that. But that is not a problem to be solved. I've never seen a business with consistent income. And when I say consistent income, what I mean is the same amount of money entering your bank account every month. It's never going to be that.
Yeah.
There is such thing as having a consistently good way to make sales. There is a way to have a consistent way to show up, but there's not a consistent amount of money that will ever enter your bank account. In fact, the bigger your business gets, the worse the inconsistency gets. My inconsistency is 10 times worse now than it ever was before.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And so you just have to let go of that desire, because what that desire is doing is it's causing you to spend money in your business on things that you think will solve the inconsistency. And it's just a waste of money because it'll never happen. Instead, what I want you to focus on is, if you accepted inconsistent income is just a circumstance I'll never outgrow, well, then what are the actual business problems I have? Let me just focus on solving those, right? Am I not converting on my sales call? That's a great problem to solve, not inconsistent income. Am I really afraid to be seen online, and so I'm hiding? That's a problem that we should solve, not inconsistent income. So you see how we get so much better, higher quality problems when we just accept that inconsistent income is always going to be there. The secondary thing I would say too is, as it relates to money coaching, when people believe inconsistent income will go away, they don't work on managing their money today because they think that it's all going to change. And in reality, you have to learn how to manage your money with inconsistent income so that you can grow. So I always say, like, don't wait for that circumstance to change. It'll never change. That's a very common one of the most.
Yeah, that actually ties into one question that I was going to ask you, which is when is it time for someone to work with a coach on this? Obviously, this is not the sort of thing that literally every person needs, right? Some people need it, some people don't. When does it make sense to look into coaching for money mindset and the related finances?
Yeah, I think number one, if you've decided that your business is serious, so I am going to do this full time, whether you're full time yet or not, or if you're already full time and you're like, no, this is my livelihood, this is my career, that's one step. And then the other step is, if you don't have business savings, if you don't have proper tax systems and savings, if you are not taking home money from your business that is a consistent amount of money every month, because even if your business income is inconsistent, your personal income shouldn't be. If you don't have those things and you're like, this is a serious business, I want to do this, then it's time for money coaching, because it's really hard to stay in business long term if you don't have your taxes situation figured out, if you're not getting paid for all your labor, because it's so much freaking work to run a business, you got to get paid for it. And if you don't have business savings to be there for you to catch you during those low cash months, we have to solve that if you want to stay in business long.
Yeah, that's such an important point. It's a shift in how you think about things where you say, I am an employee of my business. Would I ever pay an employee inconsistently? If I had a W-2 employee, would I be like, this month I'm going to pay you this much and this month I'm going to pay you that much? You can't think of it that way. That's such a key mindset shift that many business owners never get to. They never think of it that way.
I had this epiphany after my first year of business. I made $28,000 and Gina, the person, made 500 of it. I made none of the money. And I had a full-time job at the time. I fell into this like, I'm fine. I have the job. But then I realized if I ever want to quit the job, I have to take home money. There's no way for me to quit without this. So my second full year of business, I was still working at the job, but I started paying myself consistently. And then I gave myself incremental raises so that by the end of the year, I had paid myself enough for 3 months in a row where I could pay my bills off of that. And then I felt comfortable quitting my job because I was like, oh, when I quit my job, nothing is going to change.
Right.
I'm just going to continue paying myself. I actually think, hot take, hot take. Don't quit your job when you hit an arbitrary savings goal. I see this happen where people would be like, I have 6 months of expenses, so now I can quit my job. But you don't have money systems in the business to pay you. What happens then is the countdown timer starts. And now it's like, now I have 5 months left. Now I have 4 months left. Oh my God, now I have 3 months left. Oh my God. And the panic just bubbles up and that kills sales. It kills sales. And so I always say, never quit your job with some arbitrary savings goal. Quit your job when you're paying yourself enough consistently from the business to pay your bills, because then it'll feel like there's no interruption to your finances.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I haven't heard that before, but I think it makes so much sense. Like it's just this goal that is, like you said, this countdown timer, and it puts so much pressure on you.
Much pressure.
Yeah, it's just a recipe for disaster.
It is. And unfortunately, it's the predominant advice. I've seen it backfire. And for some people, it'll work. If you have balls of steel, excuse my language, if you're like, no, I'm going to make it work. If a countdown timer completely motivates you, maybe it'll work for you. But if you're like the majority of the population where you start just freaking out, it's going to cause you to have to go back to a job. Then you're going to feel like a failure. Then you might avoid your business for a while. And it's like, we just extended the timeline of you fully quitting by potentially years by doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also so tied to the employee mindset, where I think we're all trained with this mindset of when you're working a job, you need to have X amount of months in savings because you could lose your job at any time. And certainly the last few years, this is more and more and more prevalent. And people are really facing this and saying, okay, well, thankfully I had that savings, or, oh shit, I don't have the savings. What do I do? But I think that really comes from that employee mindset versus an entrepreneurial mindset where I have to have this just in case. Well, it shouldn't be a just in case, right? It should be much more than that.
And it's great to have savings. Like I love savings, but that shouldn't be the barometer through which you decide to quit your job or not.
Sure. So one thing that I've heard you talk about this is a little plug. Gina has her own podcast, which is great. It's called Small Business, Big Money. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely worth checking out. And I have heard you talk a lot about growth to scaling a business to $1 million, right? That is this big goal that a lot of businesses have. A lot of my listeners are, female entrepreneurs, like I mentioned, who are either just getting started, they haven't really launched a business yet, or they're in the very early stages. And the thought of aiming for $1 million is beyond like the reality that we're living in, right? Yeah. Do you think that there's value in reaching for a goal like that, even at the early stages in a business? Like, at what point does it make sense to say that is my ultimate goal?
Hot take again. No, I don't think there's value in reaching for a goal like that. Here's why. And I'll make a huge disclaimer and preface and say, you know yourself best. When I started my business, I had that goal. I was like, I want want to be $1 million business. And it started as a 6-figure business and then it quickly escalated to 1 million. And I had this fire in me of like, I know I can do it. I just don't know the steps. And I feel like I have a 7-figure mindset. I just have a 5-figure business. I literally said that to a coach once. So embarrassing. And I really thought like, I can do this. There's no reason why I can't do
You
this.
just need to manifest.
I just need to manifest it. But what that created was a sense of frustration and impatience in me because I was like, if I can do this, why don't I have it yet? Right. Yeah. And I remember at one point, my coach, God bless her, she was truly the best business investment I ever made. She said, Gina, you're so worried about 1 million. You don't even know how to sell a 2K offer.
Mic drop.
Oh, this is why I really love her because she wasn't afraid to be mean. She wasn't afraid to throw it in your face. And I was like, you know what? She's right. I'm like, how am I going to make 1 million if I don't know how to sell a 2K offer? So she brought me back down to earth. She's like, 1 million is not your goal. 10K is your goal. Go make 10K and then make 10K faster and then do it faster and faster and do it better and better. And that really helped me, stop feeling impatient and frustrated. This is before I worked with this coach. What I was doing is with all of that frustration and impatience, I was spending my business money on stuff I had no business spending it on because of the $1 million goal. So I had made like 15K in a year and I was investing in a 10K mastermind for ads and funnels. That makes no sense because that wasn't my business's problem at the time.
Yeah.
My business's problem was I didn't know how to sell a 2K offer, but I wanted the discomfort of that. I wanted to just skip over that problem and go straight to ads and funnels because that felt fun and exciting and scalable. And in reality, I only made 2K back off of that investment.
Yeah, I don't usually do call outs like this, but I don't think she's listening to this podcast. I don't remember the name of the author, but I'm sure you've heard of this book, We Should All Be Millionaires. It's very popular. I'm so curious what your thoughts are on that based on what you just said, because I just read it based on, 1 million people recommending it. And I was not so thrilled with a lot of the advice that she gave.
To be fair, I haven't read the book.
Okay.
So I'm not sure of the contents of the book, but I'll speak on the premise. I think there's a group of people who do really well with oversized goals. And this comes back to my philosophy in business, which is every strategy works. If every strategy works, then I don't have to spend my time critiquing strategies or not. I just have to focus on what's the strategy for me and what's best for my clients and the things that I know about them. So I'll say there's going to be people who that really works for, and that's not me.
Yeah.
It's not me and it's not typically my clients. I do have a couple friends who that really works for, but it's not me and it's not my clients. So I think I'm going to go back to you really have to tune into knowing yourself and what kind of strategies work for you. So if you feel like I felt impatient, if you feel frustrated, probably those big goals and the dream big and be audacious strategies are not the ones that you should be paying attention to. It's the boring. It's the focus on the next thing. Because I still am an impatient person. It's so cliche. I hate it. It's so cliche. Focusing on the slow and steady things has actually helped me double my revenue every year. And this is for 5 years now. I've doubled my revenue 5 years in a row. It's actually very, very fast. My growth rate is so much faster than so many of my peers. And I attribute it to actually just focusing on the next thing in front of me instead of focusing on the goal 10 steps away.
Yeah. One question that I would always ask if one of my clients came to me and they said, this is my goal for my business and I don't work on the money side, but I'm working on helping them build a brand and a website and helping them basically build a successful company, right? And if I had a client that came to me and said, I want to build $1 million business, my first question would be, why, right? What's underneath that? Like, what's the goal here? Is that really the goal that is needed right now? Yeah. And for some people, like you said, that might be the case. There might be people that feel really motivated by that goal for one reason or another. But for most of us, if the goal is, okay, I want to have the freedom to travel and buy the clothes that I like and, not have to worry about how I'm going to pay my bills or anything like that, right? If what you're really looking for is that type of freedom, most people can do that on a lot less than $1 million. And so I think that it's important to dig into that a little bit deeper as well.
Here's the other thing too. If your goal is purely, I want more money, which by the way, I love that goal. I want everyone to have more money. So I'm not shaming you. If your goal is, I want more money, $1 million business is probably not the one, because we have to actually talk about profit. My most profitable year so far has been 500K. 500K was so profitable. Oh, I love it. This year has been less profitable, even though I'm scaling to $1 million. And I would say too, that's in percentages, not total dollar. Total dollar still probably going to be more profitable. Maybe not. You can have a 100K, a 300K, even an 80K business that's hyper profitable. If you just want to take home more money, that's also a different goal than the business making more money. So get specific too. Is it a revenue goal or is it a personal income goal? We would have totally different strategies for those two different things.
There are very few, if any, $1 million plus businesses that are run by solopreneurs. You need to have staff. It takes a lot to run an operation like that. And so your overhead is going to go up and your profitability is going to go down. That's just how it works.
I don't think I've ever met $1 million business who is truly no contractors, no one else on the team.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to think, and I don't think I have. I have met a 400K business who's run solely by themselves, but I've only met one.
Yeah.
And I've worked with over 700 companies. So yeah. The bigger
I mean,
you go, the more overhead it gets. And that's just the laws of physics or something.
That's just how it goes. Yeah. When you're one person, there's only so much you can do. So a lot of business owners, and I will be totally honest, I include myself in this. I'm sure that the deeper I go into your mastermind, the more I'll shift this mindset a little bit, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. A lot of business owners are scared to take on debt for their business. And I've heard you talk about the benefits of opening your mind to that and how to use debt strategically, and why should business owners not be scared of it?
Yeah. Okay. Number one, again, I've worked with 700 companies, 400 at QuickBooks. I think maybe even more by this point, but I think like 300 through my business. I've never met a business who hasn't used debt. And yet, for some reason, everybody walks around with all this shame about their debt as if they're the only ones, as if they're a failure for having used debt for their business. And I'm like, it's literally common practice, truly. So first, let's integrate that into our bodies. This is common practice. Businesses use debt, and it is very different than personal debt, like personal credit card debt, I'll say, because businesses spend money to make money. And sometimes we don't have money to spend. So we'll use debt in that scenario. I don't think I've talked about this publicly because it's a new concept I'm coming up with, but I'll debut it here.
Ooh, exciting.
There are kind of two types of debt. And I think it's important to start with releasing shame for either. There's no room for shame in the conversation around debt because shame causes us to avoid, hide, and make our debt worse. So there are two types of debt. There's high ROI debt and there's low ROI debt. Low ROI debt to me is, I didn't have enough money to pay my bills, so let me take out a line of credit to keep paying the bills. Or I have a cash crunch and I need to figure out a way to get through this cash crunch. Or chronically, my income has declined month over month over month, and I'm running up the credit card to cover the bills because of that. That is low ROI debt because you're not using the debt to invest in any asset to get you a return. You're just using the debt to keep you afloat. And I'll be the first to say, I have done this. I do think there's a difference between, oops, I miscalculated my runway and I have a little deficit, but my launch is in 3 weeks, so I just need to get to the 3 weeks, versus chronic under earning and you're chronically using debt to just keep the business afloat. Okay. And there's high ROI debt. High ROI debt is kind of like what we've been talking about, where it's, I have a problem. Here's my problem, and I need a solution to that problem. So if I were to invest money, even if I don't have the money, into that problem, by solving it, I will get a return on investment. I want you, as much as possible, to focus on high ROI debt. And that's why it's so important to open up the possibility of debt in your business, because you could be missing out on huge returns by being closed off to the entire topic. There is high ROI debt. And I have personally invested in things on a high interest credit card, but in high ROI activities that have paid off my credit card within 6 months. And I only ended up spending like $1,000 in interest. So credit card debt is not bad in that scenario.
Can you give a couple of examples of what would be high ROI debt?
Yeah. So I'll use a couple different business models if that's helpful. So let's say I'm a shop owner I don't have capital, but it's November or it's October and I sell toys and I'm going into the holiday season, I'm going to use debt to buy inventory because I know if I don't have inventory, I won't make revenue. And I know I'm about to enter a huge sales season. That's a great use of high ROI debt, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you a coaching example for my business. So I was running my company on evergreen sales for years. My programs were open. I was doing one-on-one coaching and my group program, it was always open. And that was fine. It was working. It helped me make $275,000 my first full-time year. But at a certain point, I was like, I need to learn how to launch. I need that skill set and I don't have it. And I told myself, if I'm being honest, the only reason I'm selling on Evergreen is because I'm afraid of launching, not because I've tried launching and it doesn't work. So I invested on a credit card because I wasn't planning on doing this. I invested in a launch-based program and it was $15,000. My first launch, I made $60,000. High ROI because I identified the exact problem I needed to solve. And I want to be clear too, the program I invested in had a ton of other curriculum. They had Teams stuff and this stuff and that stuff. I only focused on the launch stuff. I kept my blinders on even inside the program. High ROI debt. Now, low ROI debt, let's try and avoid it. Right? That's why I teach savings in my program, because if you have a buffer in your business, you don't have to use low ROI debt to make it through between launches or to go through a cash crunch, right? But, life is life. Sometimes we don't have savings. Sometimes we mess it up. It's not that I think that you're a terrible person for having low ROI debt. It's that I want you to solve the problem. Why did you get into low ROI debt? Number one, we need to do an expense audit. You're probably spending money on the wrong things because all your business expenses should have a return. And if they're not, then we're spending money on the wrong things. Number two, I want you to look at, do I have a savings system? Is it just that, oops, I miscalculated and I ran out of savings early? Or is it that I just simply don't have a savings system whatsoever? If so, we need to solve that problem. So with low ROI debt, I want you to pay it off as quickly as possible, but I also want you to get curious. How did I end up in this situation? And what money system do I need to solve to make sure that I mitigate the risk of getting back into this low ROI debt, knowing that at the end of the day, we're probably all going to go through periods where we use that and it's totally fine. It's just, there's a deeper problem we need to solve. So that is a lot of debt stuff, but at the end of the day, there's just no room for shame or fear because debt is just a business tool.
Yeah, that totally makes sense and really does shift that perspective on debt is not debt, right? Like there's a lot of different ways of approaching it. And as you were describing it, it made me think of, obviously, this is a big topic and I think we don't have to focus on it, but student loans, for instance, in the way that they're being used in the US is really an atrocity, but in certain fields, it actually makes sense. My husband's a doctor and we just hit a very big milestone where we got under $100,000 left to pay on our student loan.
That's huge for a doctor.
It's huge. And we are paying very aggressively. Our mortgage and our student loan payment every month is the same. We have two mortgages essentially, but we're paying it off aggressively. And in about 3 years, I think we'll be done, which is amazing. But the reason I bring this up is because I think it is a type of debt that pays off. He's able to earn a high living because of that debt. Whereas certain other fields where you have to take on almost as much debt as going to medical school and your earning potential is $75,000, $80,000 a year, like you're just never going to pay it off or you're going to be sitting with that debt for a long time. So I think that there's also that difference in thinking about the ROI of that debt. Like, is it likely going to pay off or is it likely not going to pay off?
Totally agree. I think that it's such a shame that we have to have that conversation because I think that there's so much value in low ROI college degrees, if you will, right? As a society, we need generalists and we need people who study history and who study English and who study the arts, who don't have a high earning potential. And yet we set them up for failure. And it is a really hard, as a parent, I am going to talk to my kid about thinking through, does it make sense to spend $100,000 to $250,000 on a degree? Yeah. Maybe the answer is yes, but maybe the answer is no. And that's right. a whole societal issue that we have. But yeah, I do think about personal debt in the same way. Is this high ROI and is this low ROI? I will say in life, we also have the added complexity of ROI doesn't necessarily have to be monetary in your personal finances. It can also be joy.
Yeah.
And that brings in a whole other layer of complexity. But at a certain point, joy in a capitalistic society is also a luxury.
Yeah.
Can you afford that luxury?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy
to think about.
It is crazy.
Shifting gears a little bit. We all have our reasons for starting a business. And I think, you described your path to getting here very, very clearly. And it totally makes sense. What lights you up the most about your business today? Talking about joy.
Yes, I truly love to see a comeback story. I love to see a transformation. I love to see we shifted someone's entire life. That is addicting to me. It's totally addicting. This is such a small example, but I just had a client post in our Wins channel for Small Business Money School that she was like, I can't believe it. I have more savings than I ever thought. I only joined this program in April. And last April, I was on the brink of having to take out a Stripe loan just to cover the bills. And I avoided that. And now I have like 5 figures in the bank as a buffer. And she was like, that's insane. And I just love that idea of like, we not only helped her avoid low ROI debt, but then we helped her build out a buffer so that she won't have to go into low ROI debt in the future as well. I'm obsessed with that. I would also say I'm a heavily data-oriented person. So in both of our programs, we capture all of our client data. And I love that data. That data lights me up. The fact that I'll pull it up right now. In 7-Figure Wealth in my mastermind, we've helped our clients grow their portfolio by $10,229,476.35.
Wow.
In 6 months. And obviously that's the collective number. But then we have median portfolio growth of 35,000, average portfolio growth 129,000. Those data points light me up because if I'm being honest, and I talk about this a lot when I'm talking about 7-Figure Wealth, I don't need to be working this hard. I really don't. My finances are set. I am good to go. I am not good to retire fully yet, although I probably could if I were really, really frugal, which I don't want to be. I like to spend a lot of money and that's why I like to have a lot of money. But if I wanted to, I could just go full frugal mode. I could probably actually stop working. So since that's true, and since scaling to $1 million is such hard work and it requires me managing a team and building out systems and all of this stuff, I have to have a bigger reason. Otherwise I would quit my business.
Totally.
I would totally quit. So for me, it really is client results. I'm obsessed with my client results.
That ties into, I always say on probably every episode that this is my favorite question to ask, but I'm extra excited to ask you, especially given what you just said. If money were no object, you had all the money in the world, which it sounds like you're almost there in not billions, right? But you're almost to the point where you don't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
But I think that even think bigger, money is just not even a consideration at all. What would you be doing, if anything, differently in your business?
Okay, if money were truly no object, I think I would be hosting more in-person events that didn't need to make money. In-person events are expensive and they're difficult to be profitable. I barely know anyone who profits on their events.
Yeah.
And so I would probably just throw more of those for fun. I would probably do them locally because I have a daughter and it's hard for me to travel all the time. So maybe I would fly people in and have more in-person things. I think that would be so fun. But I still think I would be talking about money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be talking about money. I'd be coaching on money. I really am obsessed with my subject matter. And I remember even before my job at QuickBooks, I worked at Nokia for 2 years as an intern. And my manager there was a great manager. And she asked me, what do you think you want to do? And I remember back then saying, I think I want to work in fintech, financial technology. I just believe that my career will always be focused on helping people with their money. And I'm excited to see how that continues to evolve because it's already evolved a couple times.
Yeah.
And I just think that I don't know what my business will look like. I don't know what my offers will be. I don't know what anything will be in the next 10 years, but I'm very excited to just keep going on this money roller coaster, if you will.
And that's why I was so excited to chat with you, because one of the things that I focus on with my clients and the people that I work with, I'm very clear about who I work with, which is I don't work with people who have businesses that exist just to make money. Every business needs to make money. And I also want everyone to have as much money as they want to have. But there should be a deeper purpose for me, for the people that I work with. I need my clients to have a deeper purpose because that's what fuels me, is feeling like I'm a part of that deeper purpose. And I think that you have such a unique perspective also, where all you're talking about all day is money, but there's something so deep under the surface, right? Money doesn't have to be shallow. It doesn't have to be something that is negative in any way. The way I look at it is money affords opportunities and it allows us to have an impact. And if you don't have any money, it doesn't mean that you can't have any impact. Of course you can, but your impact is just going to be smaller. And so if you have a bigger purpose, you have a bigger goal that you're looking to accomplish, and you're trying to, as cheesy as it sounds, make the world a better place, you need money to do that. That's just how it works.
I always say money doesn't change you. That's a common thing, right? Money changes people. No, I actually don't believe that. I just think money allows you to amplify more of who you already are. Mm-hmm. And if you're already a shitty person, yeah, you're going to be even more louder, broader, more impact of your crappy character traits. But I really just think money allows you to express more of who you already are.
Yeah, I love that. Where can people find you? Tell us a little bit more about your 2 programs that you offer. If there's anything else that you want to share, any other ways that people can find you?
Yeah. So I have 2 core offers. I have Small Business Money School, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a program for entrepreneurs to focus on their business finances. We talk about building that buffer. We talk about paying off debt. We talk about paying yourself, all of the things. And you don't have to be a full-time entrepreneur to be in there. We have a lot of side hustlers who are working up to quitting. And I'm like obsessed with that. We have an entire curriculum that I created from my 700 clients or 700 businesses I've spoken with. And it's all geared around how to manage your inconsistent income. Small Business Money School, 12 months, $2,500. Then we have 7-Figure Wealth, which is my 6-month mastermind. And I like to think of it as sometimes it's a continuation, sometimes it's not, but it's like you need to build wealth outside your business now. Congratulations. We have your business finances semi-set, or you have like this pocket of money in your personal life that you need to figure out what to do with. It is time for us to really build wealth outside of your business so you can be work optional. Because I really do think, going back to this conversation of what is your deeper purpose, when you're work optional, that purpose gets to shine. Mm-hmm. It really gets to shine, and you get to make decisions in your business that aren't solely about money, which is just really beautiful. So in that program, that's what we focus on. We focus on investing in the stock market. We focus on consolidating your old 401ks, paying off personal debt, buying personal real estate if that's what you're interested in, protecting your assets, setting up that will and the trust and the prenup and the postnup and all the things. All the adulty things that we always put off. Truly, that's the program that I said we've helped our clients grow $10 million, which is nuts. I'm obsessed with it.
Incredible.
And that opens twice a year. So our next enrollment will be in April, May-ish, so spring 2025. And that's an investment of $6,000. So those are the 2 ways to work with me. And then my favorite way to work with me is free. It's on my podcast. Listen to my podcast, Small Business, Big Money. I think it goes back to being partially work optional myself. I am very free on my podcast. I'm very open. I have clients who have gone through my podcast and documented everything I said and basically reverse engineered my curriculums.
That's great.
Because I'm very open and free there. So if you want to dip your toe into my world, that is a really good place to start.
Amazing. And what is your website?
GinaKnox.co.
Okay.
Really simple.
Easy peasy. Thank you so much, Gina. This was such a pleasure. Our listeners will get a lot out of this conversation. There were just so many good nuggets here. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Rachel. This was so fun.
All right, beautiful humans. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Bold Women in Business podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rachel Honeyman, with music by Shmookalele. This show is brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, where we build bold, unstoppable brands and websites for kick-ass women in business. If you are a female entrepreneur or dream of being one, and you want to take your business to a level that no one can resist, reach out to me at hey@honeybebold.com for a free vibe check. Honey, be bold. See you next time.